We're rapidly entering into a world of video everywhere. And already, you will have heard of figures like every minute on YouTube, and this is obviously just one, but one very big, one example of it. But every minute on YouTube, some 72 hours of content is being uploaded onto YouTube. Our ability and want to consume this type of technology is considerable. And what we're beginning to see a shift in is a shift from just consumption to creation and actually collaboration. So the ability to have high-quality video conversations with people is absolutely what we're beginning to see. And interestingly enough, one of the projects that we've just completed was with Nationwide Building Society. And one of the challenges that they had was, if you've ever gone to get a mortgage, is it's a very time-sensitive conversation that you want to have. And the way in which they operated, as with a number of banks, is that they would have an individual, a mortgage advisor, that would go around various branches and would be available on a certain day at a certain time, and if you wanted to see them, that's when you saw them. But that meant there was a lot of opportunity they were missing out on. And so what they've now done is actually provided video into the branch so that if you want to see a mortgage advisor there and then, you can go and see that person straight away, and you can have a very qualified and informed conversation with that mortgage advisor and critically close a mortgage deal with that person. It also, interestingly enough, addresses another concern that certainly Nationwide had, as with the industry as a whole, which is around being able to record those conversations, because as soon as it's being put onto the medium of video, the ability to record that and archive that and check that for compliance and training purposes exists as well. We're also entering into a world of always connected, and we've heard already about LTE and the capabilities that will come with LTE. We already sort of begin to assume that because we've got 3G, that offers a lot in terms of connectivity, and it allows us to do things that are, in terms of accessing applications and services. But the reality is the service, clearly not here, but clearly can be sometimes patchy in terms of where you go. And the quality of the speed may not always be there. But with the advent of LTE, we're beginning to see that capability addressed. That also starts to provide some really interesting possibilities in terms of what you do with that bandwidth. And again, we'll touch on it in a second in terms of where that could go. But one of the interesting data points that I came across the other day was with some of the early deployers of LTE, what they're seeing is that while the adoption continues to grow, the users themselves are now continuing to use LTE rather than default back to broadband, even when broadband is available, because of the capability that LTE provides and the speeds, on the whole, that they're getting are higher compared to some of the broadband capabilities. Now, this is a slide I didn't put in here deliberately because of tonight, I hasten to add, but this is actually a slide that I've been talking about for some time. And it's really interesting to obviously hear and see it happening for real. But the ability to have 1 gig to the home clearly is happening. And what that starts to offer is some really interesting opportunities in terms of the services and the applications that can then sit on top of that infrastructure. Cloud consolidated data centers. We are seeing the advent of more and more cloud services. We expect to see somewhere in the region of 5.3 zettabytes of data going through cloud services by 2017. And that will account for about two-thirds of all data center traffic. So all of these services, all of these capabilities that a lot of organizations today use but will have in-house, we're seeing an appetite and a desire to put those into the public cloud based on the agility and some of those consumerization elements that we talked about earlier on, but doing so within corporate compliance needs. And then we'll get to an environment where we will not just think about where we go to work, but will actually be able to work independent of location. Arguably, this has been around for a number of years, and the reason I keep this in here is because this actually, realistically, isn't a technology challenge here. This is very much one of culture. This is one of organisations recognising the advantage and the opportunity that comes with all of that capability and that technology available to actually change the culture and start to embrace this, because the benefits of doing so can be huge in terms of cost, in terms of ability to attract and retain staff. There are multiple benefits, but we will start to see this. Right, so this is my most technical slide. So I apologise for anyone that was expecting anything more technical. And this is a golf ball. Now, I use this golf ball to represent one thing, IPv4. So as I'm sure a number of you are aware, a lot of the devices that are currently connected to the internet use this addressing scheme called IPv4. Now, the challenge is that we're now living in a world where we expect by the year 2020 to have somewhere in the region of 50 billion devices connected to the network. That will be the things that we see today, the mobile phones, the tablets. It will also be other things, and we'll touch upon those very, very shortly. But the challenge is we're now in an environment where IPv4 has run out. We are limited in terms of the addressing space available. We can do some clever things. We can do some NAT and things like that to help us expand out that capability. But longer term, we need to look at an alternative. And that alternative exists, and that is IPv6. So if we use that golf ball to represent IPv4, let's use the sun to represent IPv6. And it gives you an idea of quite how big and broad that scale is in terms of the capability to support devices. And again, recognising the very analytical audience that we have here this evening, I have put the exact answer at the top. If anyone wants to check that with me afterwards, I'm very happy to discuss it. But again, it gives you an indication of the scale and the size of what is possible. So once you start to put that infrastructure in place, once you start to look at adopting IPv6 and the capabilities that come with that, you can then start to do some very interesting things. And that's where we get to the Internet of Everything. So what do we mean by the Internet of Everything? Well, as I said, it is the process of connecting people, process, data, and things together. We are in an environment today where, of all the things that could be connected to the Internet, that are connected to the Internet, only 1% currently are. So there's huge potential, huge potential. But let me explain what I mean by that. Now, I said I'd talk about the connected fridge. Well, I'm going to go one better. I'm going to talk about the connected cow. I'm going to start at the source of the milk before it even gets into your fridge. Now, unfortunately, again, recognising where I was, I couldn't find a picture of a Jersey cow, so we'll have to go with the Frisian that we've got here. But what I have here is a real-life scenario, an extreme one, but if you bear with me. So this is a cow, and it is connected to the Internet. Now, we may be thinking, why on earth would we connect a cow to the Internet? There are many reasons that we would connect a cow to an Internet, and one of them, and I don't know if we have any vets in the audience or animal lovers, but one of the things that I didn't know, but I have subsequently learned about cows, is that cows don't show if they're ill. This is something that they have developed over the years. And the reason that they do this is because they want to ensure that from an outward perspective to any would-be predators, that they don't get picked off. So any illness, any disease that they may carry won't be visible until typically it's very late in the day of a cow, or very late in the life of a cow. Now, again, you may be thinking, well, why is that important? Well, the reason that's important is if you're a farmer and you're looking to treat your cow and make sure that it's operating at its most efficient state and being as productive as a cow can be, then you need to start to monitor it. You need to start to see its well-being. You need to start to see its vital statistics, its heartbeat, its temperature, etc. So when you start to connect the cow to the Internet, you can start to get that level of visibility. And what it allows the farmer to do is treat that cow much earlier on in the day. Now, let's bring it back to something that hopefully more of us can relate to. Healthcare. So I talked about earlier on the challenge that we are facing across the globe, an increasing population, an aging population here in Western Europe. And one of the challenges that we have to contend with is how do we support and help that aging population. And so what we have here are just some very straightforward examples of items that can and are connected to the internet. Now, these are all available today. These are commercially available items. And what we see are the asthma inhaler. We have a smart pill bottle. We have some digital Band-Aids. Now, the smart asthma inhaler is an interesting one because what that's doing is it's providing visibility around its usage. So this is a device that's connected to the internet. It will recognize when it's being used, by who it's being used, and because it's GPS capabilities in there, it's also able to actually track where it's being used. We have the smart pill bottle. So again, this detects very simply as and when it's being opened and when a pill is being taken out. So in terms of just recognizing if someone is taking their medication, if they're using it effectively, we can start to get that level of visibility. Because all of these devices are connected, they're transmitting information back securely to a base station, and a remote expert can monitor this, or a friend, family member, in the case of the pill bottle, could recognize whether their elderly relative, for example, has taken their medication for the day. And then the other two examples are interesting because these are, again, very standard items that are now connected to the network. So we have a plaster, and it has a very simple circuitry board within it, a battery that will last for somewhere in the region of 7 days, and that will continually monitor the patient and transmit and make available information about that individual. So think of the cow, think of that now for the individual. And then that final one is, believe it or not, again, a printed circuit board. It looks like a transfer, but within that is the circuitry and the capability to provide, again, vital statistics about the person that's wearing it for a period of about 24 hours and transmit that securely to a wireless access base station so that a doctor remotely could monitor that person that's wearing it. Now, all of this starts to introduce a really interesting concept around big data, a topic, again, that's been around for a while. But what big data allows us to do is start to pull together some really interesting unstructured data sets and turn data into true information, allow informed decisions to be made. Now, all of that clearly has to be under the guise of a very strict security policy. And so as we start to connect more and more of these things, these capabilities to the network, the security capabilities absolutely have to exist. And I think that's, again, where we're going to see the evolution of policies, understanding around capabilities of the technology. And I think, just harping back a little bit to the big data, I think the other interesting evolution that we're going to see over the next couple of years is a swing in the pendulum as to who owns that big data. Because at the moment, you're producing it, you're doing it every single day, whether it's with your mobile phone as you walk around, drive around, you use your credit card. Your everyday life, you're producing data. And someone else is collecting that typically. Someone else is getting visibility, whether it's you using your club card points or whatever. But it's very much siloed with that particular organisation. And I believe what we're going to see over the next couple of years is a swing in terms of who owns that data. And I believe we'll see the advent where you own all the data that you produce. And what you then do is you decide how you use that data. And it may be monetize it. You may want to commercially benefit from all the data that you're producing. It may be that you want to do something else with it. You may want to get a better insight into the way in which you live your lives and how you could do it more effectively. But we will see a swing back. So rather than having silos of information being contained with individual organisations, we will own that data ourselves and decide how best we want to use it, probably through a third party of some sort.